Her immune system shut down. What?
Welcome to the Joyous Expansion Podcast. I'm your host, Brett Dupree, scouring the globe to bring you stories of courage, passion, and resilience. If I could sum up this podcast into one word, I would use empathy. Now let's get inspired.
Welcome to the Joyous Expansion Podcast. I'm your host once again, Brett Dupree, here with a wonderful interview with Lea Bayles, who talks about the struggles and anxieties that she had in starting her business and about her total immune breakdown. See, her body, important part of her body shut down. Exciting. Well, maybe not that part exciting, but it's another wonderful interview where someone goes deep into who they are. And yes, that's what I like to listen to, and I enjoyed editing it, and I can't wait for you to listen to it. But first, we must talk about my life, because if I can't be vulnerable to where I am, how can I expect my guests to be vulnerable as well? Today, I am talking about something I've been talking about for a while. If you've been listening to the Joyous Expansion Podcast, I've been talking about this probably for over a year now, and unfortunately, I'm going to talk about it again. Why? Because it is just part of my life, and it's part of my life that I understand maybe my longtime listeners are sick of talking about, but honestly, I'm sick of thinking about it, which is my weight. Once again, I don't remember if I mentioned, I've been on this thing called the HMR diet, which is healthy meal replacement diet. It's not my favorite diet in the world because everything tastes saucy and mushy, and I don't really like saucy and mushy. And yeah, but like this entire week, I have been completely off of it, and it's just why. There's just so many things in my mind that I think that is frustrating. My last week was my last meeting with my therapist because I'm moving in 2 weeks, and honestly, just driving up to where she is and driving back to where I live would be way too much traffic, and there's just plenty of people around where I'm moving to, and so there's plenty of good therapists out there. And when I think about when I hired my therapist, one of the main reasons why I hired my therapist is because I knew I was going to get a plateau and fail, because that's what I've done every time I've lost weight. 2 years ago, when I got down to, I lost 50 pounds and then gained it all back. The year before that, where I lost 60 to 70 pounds and then gained it all back. But last year, since I've hired her, I've lost the same 20 pounds over and over again. And it's just been frustrating. Very, very frustrating. I don't really understand why. I think in the next therapist, I'm really going to talk about that, because my HMR program, I do weekly coaching, and there is a part of me that is kind of uncoachable. I'm noticing that people telling me what to do. I keep on thinking of it back to when I was a kid in a plane and some lady asked me to wash my hands, and I'm like, you're not my mom. But that can't be it. That can't be the one moment in my life where I decided that all authority figures have nothing on me. But it probably has a lot to do with me fighting back on my mom when she came back and tried to reassert herself as my mom in high school. And at that time, I was having nothing of it. You left my life. And maybe that's where it's coming from, people telling me what to do when I don't really want to. Plus, there's also my dad, who, I love my dad, but he wasn't the most authoritative man. And I felt, especially, I had this thought a lot in my 6th grade year, that I was pretty much raising myself, because he was either partying, playing racquetball, or sleeping because he works at night. I mean, the ladies around the apartment complex, because, a hot, young, single man who's also young, single father who's young, all the 30 to 40-year-old women just loved my dad. And so they always looked out for us, but they never provided any sort of discipline. And plus, I didn't really need a lot, because I wasn't the type of kid who would get in trouble. Yes, I would do dumb things as a kid. I'm not saying I was perfect, but I wasn't somebody who acted out by doing bad things. The way I acted out was just to not do anything, not clean, not really talk to people, to shut down. And people telling me what to do, especially when the girlfriends would come in, I would hate when they would tell me what to do. So maybe I'm just going through my own therapy session right now, but there's this part of me who does not like people telling me what to do, even if it benefits my life. So maybe that is something to do about it as well, is why I am not the most coachable person. And one thing about being successful is you need to be coachable. Being coachable and allowing people to assess your life, because the reality is you are not the best arbiter the right word? Auditor of your life. You're not the best abattoir of your life. You're not the best auditor, because you are very biased toward your own opinion, as I am very biased to my opinion, and I'm very good at lying to myself, which is why coaches and therapists and outside help is important. But one of the problems is if you can't accept that help, if you can't accept other people's advice that are good for you, it's no good. It doesn't help. And that's something that is important. Of course, I'm not saying turn your life over to someone else, but having the outside source is helpful. And it's also hard because one of those people who are extremely self-aware, at least so self-aware enough where I'm good at lying to myself that I'm self-aware, because I think about myself and why I do things all the freaking time. And so I'm very good at lying to myself. So when it comes to that, I barely even talk to my therapist about it. About my life. I kind of just went broad strokes, but she was also a positive therapist, so she really wanted to, anytime I felt I put something we can go deeper in, she pretty much turned into a positive thing, and so I didn't really feel the need to do that as well. So yeah, it's an interesting thing to think about when I think about it. And yeah, like the last week, almost every day of this week, I cheated, including today, which is Monday, February 3rd. So February 4th, I need to start. I need to start and actually do that. But will I? That's the question I truly have for myself. You know how many times in my life that I drew the line of the Rubicon and stepped over that line and said, this is the time I'm going to do it. And even sometimes the next day, because I did it yesterday. I said yesterday, starting today, I am going to do it. And then when I was driving home, I thought to myself, you know what sounds good? $4.99 chicken at Safeway. That sounds amazing. Plus, I need to buy some cleaning supplies anywhere. And there was a built-in excuse for me to do so. So the question is what is wrong with me? Which is just the thought in my head. Every time I do this, every time I cheat on my diet, I almost go on this just spiral of self-deprecation where I think how weak I am, where I think how pathetic I am. How I don't think I'll ever be successful. No one's going to be part of the Church of Awesome if I'm this fat. No one's ever going to want to hire me to publicly speak if I'm this fat. No one's going to want to do anything with me if I am this fat. And then going down and down into that rabbit hole of despair. But I'm also good enough to pick myself up again and go, tomorrow is a new day. Another new day to mess up and go through that over and over and over and over and over again. That cycle that just keeps on freaking happening. So the question I have for you folks is quite simple, have you done this? Does this register with you at all? Can you relate? Because I understand your frustration. I do. Now here's somebody who was able to break down and get through her frustration. Let's talk about Lea Bayles. Lea Bayles has been called a secret weapon for life and business success, a voice of healing, empowerment, and love with a capital L, a marvelous magician who helps us transform into our most glorious, loving selves. Transformational speaker, author, holistic life and success coach, radio show host, Lea empowers entrepreneurs, professionals, and creatives to thrive in body, mind, and soul so that they can create the lives and powerful impact they love. Recovering from a serious immune system crash in her early 30s woke Lea up to the extraordinary healing power within each of us. This led to a 20 years in holistic wellness, which included positions as a mind-body therapist at Integrative Medical Center, employee wellness coordinator for a large hospital system, and program director for international yoga therapy. She works one-on-one coaching retreats, workshops, class online around the U.S. and her home, Dream Forest Farms in the foothills of the Oregon Coast Range. And now, here's my interview with Lea Bayles. Hello, Lea, and welcome to my podcast.
Thank you so much, Brett. It's a wonderful thing to be here. I'm so happy. Thank you.
I'm happy to have you on. I met you at the Rock Your Talk event, The Rise, and you seem like such a great energy, so I'm super happy to have you on.
Thank you. Wasn't that a great event? And it was wonderful to meet you there. Yeah.
So tell the listeners something about you. You seem to be a holistic coach, wellness.
I am. I've had a number of years where I worked in the holistic field. I had a really serious immune system breakdown in my early 30s. I was in grad school. I had little kids and I was in that super mom push kind of mode, the way I thought we needed to create success by pushing more and overriding my body. And I had a really serious immune system collapse. And it was one of the best things that ever happened to me because it made me really stop completely and go back into my heart and into my body and into my soul and led me on an amazing healing journey where I learned the power of healing that's within each of us, the extraordinary power of healing within each of us, and learned to activate that in myself, and then had the wonderful honor of teaching it to hundreds, really thousands of people through various positions in holistic wellness, through a hospital system, an integrative medicine clinic, and corporations. And then the last few years, I've taken that into my own business. And I use those mind-body healing skills and energy medicine to help entrepreneurs, change makers, creatives, so that they can thrive in their bodies and their minds and their souls while they're creating the life, the dreams, the impact they want without ever needing to burn themselves out.
So what exactly does an immune system collapse look like?
Well, it can look a lot of different ways. For me, it looked like getting a cold and kind of pushing through it, and then getting another little virus and kind of pushing through it, and thinking I could keep pushing and pushing until in the middle of the night, I woke up and my heart was going boom, 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 boom. And it was very erratic and very terrifying. And I remember waking up in the middle of the night and thinking, oh my gosh, should I wake my husband up? Should I go to the hospital? And, no, you're probably fine. And finally it did go away. And then in the morning I woke up, Brett, I could not move. It was just like, I felt like I'd been run over by a truck. And so it was many months of, first of all, tests to make sure I was going to live. They ruled out the things that came up immediately that they thought I might not live from, which was terrifying with 3 little children. And then I had the really strong guidance from inside that it was not my path to go from doctor to doctor to get fixed, but it was my path to turn within. And the deep experience I had beyond all the diagnoses, I had pericarditis and I had compromise of my organs and, various things. But the deep experience I had was that my inner well, we all have inside ourselves an inner well of energy and vitality, those well springs of energy, and that my well was just about completely empty. I could look inside and feel just a couple of drops left. and I realized I need to live in a way that doesn't deplete this inner wellspring, but that fills it back up. And so for me, it was that sense of like deep, deep depletion. Like there was almost nothing left. I'd given it all up, used it all, pushed it out.
So what exactly were you doing that was emptying your well?
Well, I had 3 little kids, which I loved, and I was doing a yoga teacher apprenticeship, and I was in graduate school, and I was taking care of other people's kids, and didn't listen to my body. Ironically, I was writing a paper on mind-body healing, and I was ignoring the very first principle of mind-body healing, which is listen to your body. Be tuned to what's there inside you, that wonderful wisdom we all have all the time. And I was ignoring that. I was overriding it. I was pushing through. And, a lot of people do that for a lot of years and don't have a collapse. But I think actually I was really fortunate to have the collapse when I did, as young as I was, so that it helped me redirect my life. And so it helped me look into the world and realize, oh my gosh, lots of people are running on empty. Lots of people are depleting themselves. And having developed some skills myself for dealing with that, I had the wonderful opportunity to help other people learn to listen to their bodies, learn to be more responsive, learn to live in a way that didn't deplete us, but helped us feel connected to what I think of as that natural radiance, that radiant well-being.
So when you first decided to listen to your body, what was the first thing it told you to do?
I had listened to my body some before, and I'd actually been interested in mind-body healing before. And so, it wasn't really the very first time, but certainly one of the big, big things is rest. Rest more. And I think this is endemic in our culture, that we're so addicted to busyness and rushing and pushing, that when our body says, oh, I'm kind of tired, rest, we're like, oh, buck up, have some coffee, keep going. How can I keep doing more? Quality of just listening when we're tired, responding to it. Interestingly, I find myself and with my clients and students, when it doesn't usually take that long. Our bodies first whisper to us, and then they get louder and louder. And then, like in my case, when I was being so ignoring it, it knocked me over. So it's the early signals of like, oh, rest, which seems so simple, but in our culture, it's kind of radical to rest when we're tired. I've met people who had had chronic fatigue for years and told me they never had taken a day to just fully rest. And sometimes that's what it takes.
Yeah, definitely. Especially being in personal growth, I see a lot of memes and stuff about how you take 8 hours of sleep and 8 hours of your full-time job. Now you have 8 full hours to go for it in your business. So it's like this idea of you got to go. And they rarely talk about the need for rest.
Yeah. And, I actually recently talked with a young woman who had had a business coach tell her that she and her husband both just needed to keep their foot on the gas pedal all the time for the next few years. And it's like, oh my gosh. I mean, a car is a machine, but you can't even drive a car that way, or you'd crash into things or you'd run out of gas, and to think the foot on the gas pedal all the time. And that was the advice she was given. It's really abusive. It's an abusive way to be with our body. And knowing that our bodies, when they tell us, oh, rest, it's not going to be forever. And it doesn't mean we're giving up. It doesn't mean we're lazy. It means we're responsive. And then our body's natural energy picks up and like, yeah, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to do that work. So it's a trust, I think, of our natural rhythms and this brilliant body that we all have.
You learned how to heal yourself through your work. And how did you decide to want to help to do this for others?
Well, I think I'm kind of a natural teacher. I've actually been teaching various things since I was a kid. And so I think my inclination is when I learn something that works for me, if there are other people that can benefit from it, I want to teach it.
I was just curious. You're always someone who is gregarious, can go out and speak and things like that?
I think usually, although there have definitely been times where I kind of freeze up. And, I love people. I love connecting with people. But I definitely went through some times where I felt like I was really critical of myself. And so I would hold myself back. And I think over the years, a wonderful part of that, this continual process we're all in of becoming who we really are. It's realizing those parts that were keeping me from being who I really was and finding ways to just lovingly let go of those. I know you talk a lot about fear, and one of the things I realized was that my fears were wrapped up with my desires and my longing. So some of the things I was afraid of, really underneath, there was a longing to do them. And so if I stopped myself by letting myself be afraid, I would miss out on the thrill and that inner pull that was drawing me towards something. So part of it was like, okay, I'm afraid of this. That's interesting. That has some energy for me. How can I step toward it? In a way that gently, and maybe at first, but realizing, oh, I'm fearful of it. There's something there that's calling me. There's something there that is interesting to me about that. And so looking at those things not as something to avoid, but as finding ways to embrace them.
That makes sense, because when I think of fear, one thing I've learned is that it's an energy and it's what we decide to do with it a lot of the times. You can use it to run away, or you can use it as almost an excitement for it. It's like going on a roller coaster or watching a scary movie, and you feel that fear, but that's exhilarating. But you can also utilize that in your normal life.
I love that. And that's exactly what I'm talking about. There's energy there. And we get scared sometimes of big energy. But yeah, when you can use the energy to help you move forward, then, we're in that journey of becoming who we are.
So what are some of your biggest fears in running and starting a business?
What a great question. And what's interesting is I know I've had lots, my mind kind of stops right now. I'm like thinking, I don't know. But yes, this is kind of silly, see me even. One of my biggest fears has been following up. And I realized a few years ago, there were like lots of times when people were like, oh, I'm interested in that. I'd like to hear more. And I wouldn't follow up, or I would wait for people to come to me, and realizing that kind of puts the burden on them. If I'm going to actually be generous, if I'm actually going to be a teacher and help people, then finding that way to bridge toward people and follow up. And I think part of that fear for many of us who are heart-centered, entrepreneurs and business people is we don't want to be pushy. We don't want to be salesy. And so being able to make that shift from realizing it's a place of generosity to offer it to people who want, and in a way it's a selfishness not to offer it to people who might want it, but of course they're never pushing. So I think following up and actually asking for, I have been speaking for a very long time and I love speaking. I get nervous with it. I get fearful and I love it. I use that energy with it. I had a fear about calling people and asking them about coming and speaking. And so I waited for people to come to me, and people did. I would have people come to me, but not as often as I wanted to speak. And the other thing was then they would be coming to me like, oh, would you come teach a class on communication? Would you come teach a class on stress? Would you talk to us about, and it was their topic, which took a huge amount of time. It took a lot of preparation. And so making that shift to be able to have what I, at the time, most want to speak about, looking for the groups that I think might benefit from it and calling them up. And at first, for some reason, and as I describe it to you, it seems really silly, but at first it was tough to do that. I had to break through a barrier. And then what I found is that doing it in a kind of light, easy way, and in fact, one of the things at that conference you and I met that weekend, they were talking about how to make your offers in a really light, easy way. Kristen Thompson was talking about that, and she's great with it. I learned how much fun it can be. And I'm not attached to the outcome. People, it's not right for them. That's fine. But often it is. And so again, it's like, playing with fear can be fun, and breaking through that barrier can be really fun, and reaching out and saying, hey, I've got this. I'd love to present it. Do you think it's right for your people? Is actually fun and energizing.
So I'm curious on one of the things you said, that it's actually selfish to not follow up and not share yourself. Can you speak a little bit more on that?
When we don't offer what we have to give, whether it's in a relationship with a partner or when it's in a group setting, if we hold back and don't offer our insight or our perspectives or, if we're in a situation and we think, gosh, it feels like this might be really helpful, and we don't offer it, I think we're missing out as a whole on the piece of the puzzle that each of us has. Each of us has, I think, a piece of the big puzzle of what the world needs. And in a situation, wherever we are, we have gifts. We each have unique gifts that only we can offer in our way. And if we're holding back because we're fearful, or we're holding back because we're afraid of what someone might reject them, then that is, I believe, selfish. Our gifts come to us from God, however you think of God. We come with these amazing gifts, and whether we think the universe or, however we imagine it, but that we, I believe, each come with gifts that we are invited to offer to the world. And we are responsible for developing those and bringing them forward and offering them, because I believe the gifts that you have and I have and each one of us has are needed by the world. And if we hold them back out of fear, out of resistance, out of whatever it is, we're not being as generous and as loving as we can be.
That's very beautiful.
And does that resonate for you too, Brett? Do you have that sense as well?
Oh, definitely. The more people tell their stories, the more people that will be helped. And when we keep it inside, then we can't go out and share our story with people. And the one person who needs to hear it won't be able to hear it.
Exactly. And even our weirdnesses, the parts of us that we sometimes think, oh my gosh, probably no one else thinks this, or this is crazy, or, I should hide this, whether it's our fear or our resistance or whatever, that we may think nobody else is grappling with it. But when we bring it forward, we find other people are too. And that sometimes the parts that make us weird or the parts we're afraid of are the ones that might be most important to bring to the world.
Oh, I 100% agree. That's one of the reasons I really want to bring empathy to my podcast, is just thinking about myself. One of the things that were most painful is thinking that all the things that I was going through was quote unquote special, and I was one of the only ones. And one of the things I've learned about is just how almost universal our pains are. And that also means it's universal that people can understand you, and it's universal that there's ways to be helped through that as well.
Yes. And I would even say our painful experiences, our difficult experiences, like my immune system collapse, are often the things that if we turn to them and embrace them and learn from them, help us become even more who we are. They draw from us deeper qualities in ourselves, the empathy, like you're talking about, and the courage, and, they break us open sometimes. And I think our hearts are actually meant to break, because they break open and then we've got more room for love, for ourselves, for the people we know, and for the world.
So when you started to step out in the world and help corporations, what made you want to go from that to starting your own business?
Well, I had the great experience of being at the beginning of some wonderful programs. I was asked to create an employee wellness program for several counties, and it was doing it. No one else had ever done it, so I was doing it on my own. I did it from home. I could do it in my own way. It was very creative and lots of serendipity and very, very fun and exciting. At the same time, I was part of an integrative medicine clinic that was beginning. So I was the first mind-body therapist there and in on the groundwork. And I'm really great at that beginning of things, helping to bring things together. And as I was pretty clear that as it moved forward and became more, I don't want to say this negatively, but became more systematized, became more a routine management thing, it wouldn't be mine to be part of. It was wonderful to be engaged in that. It was very vibrant and alive. And then I just realized it was time for me to move on. And I had some products and things I wanted to create that I wanted to own. I wanted the challenge of being in a business and doing it as an entrepreneur.
So what does it look like working with you?
Well, I do retreats. I have a radiance retreat coming up in February. So sometimes people come and work with me for a day here at my studio. It's a small group, and we do inner work and movement and sharing. And that's a wonderful way to dive deep and play for a day or a weekend. Some people come individually and work with me for a personal day or a personal retreat. Mostly I work with individuals one-on-one. I do like a 3-month package to start, because that's enough for people to dive in and really make some changes. And in a 3-month period, I think a lot can really happen. So if people are working with me locally, they come out to my place in the country and we connect. A lot of people are somewhere else and we do phone chats or Zoom talks, and I record those and follow their process. My sense is that each one of us has a natural brilliance, and it is my joy and my job to help bring that forward. And so I integrate a lot of mind-body energy work, really based on where they are. We work with what stories are holding people back. What is it they want? First of all, it's like, what is it you're wanting to create now? What's inside you that's wanting to be birthed, that's wanting to come forward, and generating that energy and excitement for that? And then, okay, what's in the way? What's getting in the way? Often, usually, almost always, what's in the way is really ready to begin to shift. And so we look at how we change the story, how we reprogram the mind and the body, how we repattern the brain to help those new stories and new shifts come so they can move into what they really want to create in their life. And I would say what wants to be created in their life.
What do you like best about what you do?
I love the surprises. I love that when I sit with someone and maybe we drop inside, I don't know what's going to happen for them. I like to do a lot of imagery work, like not like I plant the image, but it's called interactive imagery. So we might have people drop inside and we would ask a question. And even people who think they can't do it brilliantly. And they would ask a question like of their heart or their inner self. And it's so amazing to see what comes forward. I just so love the natural brilliance of each person and being able to help nurture that and see it emerge and grow.
Do you have any fun success stories?
Yes. Let me see which one wants to come. There was a woman recently I was working with who told me that her whole life, she realized she had been going for her whole life. She was in her early 50s, I think, but she'd been going her whole life by pushing. And she'd done really well in high school. She'd done really well in college. She was an athlete and she had her own business, a consulting business. And she had succeeded her whole life by pushing and pushing and pushing. And she realized she was exhausted with doing that, and that there was some part of her inner self that was saying, this needs to shift. And so she and I started working together. And one of our first sessions, she realized she had the boss from hell and she was her boss. And that she would never work for another boss who was that way. She was the boss from hell to herself. And very quickly, she was telling me that she was absolutely amazed that she had stopped pushing. She was in a flow state, learning to flow with her mind, her body, her work in a way she never had before, and that she was getting way more done than she'd ever gotten done. She said, I never would have thought this was possible. So just that wonderful feeling of shifting into a state of the momentum of flow and being able to move with the river instead of having to push the river or paddle upstream. And just the joy and relief that she expressed from really understanding how well that worked. It wasn't an idea, but how well that worked in every part of her life.
We are getting towards the end of our time together. One thing I like to ask my guests is to give a 1 minute of motivation. You can imagine this as if you have a time machine and you're going back to your 8-year-old self and you want to convey everything you need to live a happy, joyful life. Unfortunately, you have a minute until you're plopped back into the present. Or you can think of it as taking your entire life's message and pushing it down to a minute. So are you ready to go?
You are amazing. You are fabulous, just as you are. And there is always more inside you that is eager to emerge. And when you honor that part that is fabulous, just as you are, and when you're connected to that part that wants to emerge and you're curious, and you allow that part that wants to emerge and grow, and you follow that, then throughout your life, you become more and more who you really are. And in Brett's words, you become connected to that joyous expansion of life. That's a natural part of you. Your inner self wants to expand in joy, in love, in light, in growth. You are fabulous just as you are. And there is always more inside, eager to emerge and to grow.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being on my podcast. I really enjoyed hearing your story on how your immunity collapse allowed you to take a self-assessment of your life and gain the awareness of what you need to do to help yourself, to heal yourself and unleash the amazing, healing power of the body, and thus taking that and teaching it to others in such a strong and authentic way, and really putting your gifts out there and showing what can be possible when it comes to healing oneself and pushing through this fun thing that we call life. So thank you so much for being on my podcast, and thank you so much for your service to humanity.
Thank you so much, Brett. What a delight to be here. And thank you for all the work you're doing with joyous expansion and bringing love and light to the world. Thank you.
May your day be special.
And there you have it, folks. That is my interview with Lea. What a great story of perseverance. Having your entire immune system shut down. That has to be scary, but to not only not be scared about it, but to also pick yourself back up and do it again, and then go out and teach others. I love how people are so free with their teaching of others and helping people repattern and build resilience, because that's what it's all about, resilience. And listening to her talk is I'll be honest. One reason why I love doing these interviews is the interviews themselves and just being inspired by the people I'm talking to. And Lea was extremely inspiring. And one thing I really appreciated was the idea of getting yourself out there and how it is selfish not to. And that is something that is hard to wrap your mind around sometimes. But if you think about it, if you can truly help people, when you are not promoting yourself to people and getting yourself out there, you are denying them your services. You are denying them your ability to help. So every time I don't promote my podcast, I am denying people the joy of listening to my podcast. And maybe that one person will hear that one story they need. So I need to get my podcast out there more. And just think about your business or what you do. What makes you special in what you do? And every time you don't tell someone what you do, every time, I'm not saying go out there and be salesy and be annoying, but if it comes up and naturally you say, I am a blank, or somebody, well, if someone comes up with a problem and they're like, well, this is something I do. If this could help you, I will give you more information here. I am able to do so as a way of service, as a way of love, as a way of getting yourself out there. You're giving them an opportunity to hire you, and you're giving them an opportunity to grow and change because of the transformational work that you do. And that is what's important. Helping, serving, loving, being, growing. And if you want to grow with Lea, you can connect and access her radio show and a wealth of resources to help you enjoy radiant well-being and success that satisfies your soul at leabayles.com, or you email her at leah@leabayles.com, LeaBayles. Facebook, Lea Bayles Fan, to receive short weekly videos. Miracle Makers Mindset Mondays. Ooh, I love alliteration. The Miracle Makers Chi Power Quick Shift Formula. Get out of the push more power through mode and activate your chi power is a free 97 gift at www.leabayles.com. There you have it, folks. That is episode 58 of the Joyous Expansion podcast. I appreciate you for listening to it. If you want to email me for any reason, you can email me at BRE2TsDPR2Es@joyousexpansion.com. You can also check out joyousexpansion.com for information about me and my free ebook. You can find me on Facebook at Increase Your Joy, bad SEO. Not the bad SEO part, but whatever. Just Increase Your Joy. Actually, you can just search my name. If you search Brett Dupree, Joyous Expansion, you can find me anywhere, like Instagram at Joyous Expansion, Twitter at Joyous Expansion. If you like this, leave a review, stars, anything can help. So thank you so much if you made it this far. I love you for who you are. I'm once again Brett Dupree, the champion of authentic joy, the catalyst of transformation, the Church of Awesome, and your Joyous Expansion life coach. Wishing you once again to be love, to be joy, to be awesome. Now play my jingle.
JoyousExpansion.com. JoyousExpansion.com. Come and say hello to Brett Dupree. He is an inspirational life coach. Good for you and good for me. He turned my life from grey to blue. I'm sure he'll do the same for you. Get in touch and you'll see your life will change dramatically. JoyousExpansion.com. JoyousExpansion.com. Yeah.